I wish I was a Harajuku boy.
Yeah.
Harajuku fashion. Most people will have only heard of Harajuku when Gwen Stefani did the song Harajuku Girls. But there's a very long and deeply cultural history to the Harajuku area and the fashion movement. Harajuku is a place in Japan. It started to become a fashion district just after the end of the Second World War. There was a place near the district called Washington Heights, and that is where commissioned officers from the US military had been based. This influx of foreigners from the US and the UK to Japan at this military base, that had an effect on the local people. Cultural style, the fashion, the hair, the clothes, the music, because obviously that would be the beginnings of rock and roll, and the teddy boys and all that kind of thing that was coming from the States and the UK. Harajuku became a bit of a cultural mix, and it attracted creatives and bohemians from around Japan to visit the area. And suddenly boutiques and restaurants and bars were popping up in the area, and it became very bohemian and very fashionable. This then developed, it went on and on into the 60s and the 70s, when lots of independent fashion designers, photographers, stylists flocked to the area, and they became known as mansion makers, because large apartment buildings would be called mansions in Japan. And all of these designers, because the area was so cheap for rentals, all of these designers would rent small rooms within these big apartment blocks and actually create within the rooms. So it would be a collective of creatives and designers and photographers all working together. So this would be the beginnings of Yamamoto, Issey Miyake, Comme des Garçons, and the creativity around them. This is where they began. This all came together in 1971 with a place called La Forêt, which was a home for new designers. There were also publications that celebrated these new designs and new designers, DC designers, designer characters. And this kind of cultural phenomenon caught the eye of people like David Bowie, Iggy Pop, and they were using their designs and their aesthetic into their own cultural output. I first came across the Harajuku culture in the early 2000s, and I found this amazing book called Fruits, which was the name of a magazine of the same name, which photographed street style all over the Harajuku area. And what really, really excited me was the mix of designs. So you would have somebody wearing a jacket from a flea shop, but a skirt from Comme des Garçons. They would mix high-end and flea market together to create an overall look. And this just became more and more extreme as time went on. I think what developed into the Harajuku girls, because it became very maximalist and more was more. And I've always been absolutely enthralled by subcultures, and the Harajuku kids, as they were known, picked whatever they wanted from all of the subcultures in the Western world. So you've got skinheads, you've got punks, you've got goths, you've got rockers, you've got teddy boys, all these things, and they just literally just put them in a big melting pot and stirred the pot up. So exciting to me. Out of this also became like a subculture called Lolita, which mainly young girls wore. And it was a kind of a mixture of goth and fetish. So, and it just made this whole look, which was very kind of the cartoon culture. Again, very extreme, very extrovert, very maximalist. With a sense of modesty as well. There was no nudity involved, and not kind of icky or gross in any way. Obviously, throughout all the looks and the kind of the explosion of the look, there is also crossing of genders and the androgyny and the dressing up and the men as peacocks, as it were. It was a massive eye opener to me. I'd always kind of, snobbily thought that the UK, London, was the melting pot and the centre of style for the whole world. Immigration over different decades and everything, and all the cultures that had piled in together. I thought that London and New York were the places for this kind of cultural explosion. I found Harajuku and I was like, whoa, they're light years ahead of anybody else, because they just pull it all in and then mix it all up, and then you get this look. I follow a few people on Instagram who report still now from the Harajuku area, Harajuku district. Not quite as extravagant, not quite as dressy, a little bit more sophisticated, like emphasis on detail. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who still dress outrageously and really mix it up and all that kind of thing. A general rule, it seems to have really pared down. But I think that's a reflection of the whole world, really. People aren't dressing as eccentrically and as extravagantly as they used to. I think a real problem with people not expressing themselves through clothes. It's almost like a disease across the world of people looking so boring and dull and dressing down and not wanting to stand out or be, picked out in a crowd. But that's why I'm here, your dose of eccentricity. So I hope you've enjoyed that quick potted history of the Harajuku area and the fashion movement. Tune in for the next video. If you've enjoyed this episode of the ETHICSTYLE show with me, Burbo, then please subscribe and please hit the notification button below so that you can be alerted to the next video. The videos come out on Sundays at 8 PM GMT, and thanks for watching.